Hi, Katie Wickens here.
Oh, and Jacob Ridley as well. Do my own intro.
And we're part of the PC Gamer hardware team, and we're here to chat to you about AMD's newest member of the RDNA family, as they like to call it, the RX 6700 XT.
Yep, it was announced just recently in a live stream, and it comes at the lower end of the Red Team 6000 series of graphics cards, and it looks to be like a pretty promising contender, especially versus Nvidia's lot in the 30 series.
So, what are your initial thoughts, Jacob?
Initial thoughts, kind of where I expected it, to be honest. It feels like a lot of the rumors leading up to this kind of got it pretty on point. A lot of the leaks. So it feels like it wasn't the most surprising launch in the world. I think the most surprising thing, and maybe it's a bit of an aside to this now, is we had expected two cards. We'd have got the 6700 and the 6700 XT, which is kind of what traditionally AMD would have done, especially the 5700 XT and the 5700.
That's coming out a bit later now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd assume that there is another card just because...
Somewhere.
You know, yeah, I mean, well, we're kind of getting straight into the specs, but we're looking at the Navi 22 GPU, the Navi 21 GPU used in the 6900 XT, 6800 XT, 6800, and now we're looking at the Navi 22 GPU. That's 40 CUs, and we're using all 40 CUs for the 6700 XT. So you'd assume that there's got to be a cheaper card, so you'd assume and there's got to be one that's using fewer CUs. To use up that silicon. So, you know, we expected that to be the 6700 at launch. For whatever reason, it's not. And I think that's kind of the most surprising thing out of the whole launch, to be honest.
So this is a card that's kind of aimed at 1440p gaming. You've already said a little bit about the specs. So what you've already, it's got not the same amount of VRAM as the rest of them. The 16 gigabytes is not necessary, maybe.
Yeah, I think obviously Nvidia just launched the 3060, which sits kind of quite a bit below where the 6700 XT is aimed at, but that's coming with 12 gigabytes. So I think that was kind of the lower limit. Maybe that from Nvidia was a response to AMD putting more VRAM on its cards. Overall, they have, you know, like you say, 16 gigabytes at the high end, which is more than Nvidia, although Nvidia are using GDDR6X at the top end, so it's kind of faster and bandwidth. But realistically, like on paper, it looks like AMD's kind of winning the capacity thing. So yeah, I think 12 gigabytes, again, it makes sense. It's going to be a good amount for future-proofing. I say that, you know, future-proofing because as much as you can ever future-proof a PC, but I do think it will cover you for longer, having 12 gigabytes to say 6 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Maybe even, I think 8 is a fine amount, but 12 definitely feels like a comfortable amount going forward into the future. So
just in case.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also coming with the Infinity Cache, which is like the new feature with RDNA 2. That was obviously 128 megabytes. It's quite a big reason, quite a big part of AMD's entire like cache hierarchy and memory structure, in that it takes the strain off having to have a much higher, more power thirsty memory bus, which is something that you do see the bigger memory bus on the NVIDIA cards, but we can't really discern the power exactly from that. But it is something that they're saying for high resolutions is going to help out a lot. And we're seeing actually not as low an Infinity Cache on the 6700 XT than what you might expect. Because you kind of expect it, the top card, the 6900 XT, 80 CUs, 128 megabytes of Infinity Cache. The 6700 XT is 40 CUs, so exactly half. That's the max configuration of those two GPUs, but it's actually got 96 megabytes of Infinity Cache, so it's actually more than half of the Infinity Cache. And maybe that's just purely down to the fact of where the efficiency of that cache lies. Like AMD would have done testing surely over many years, as they've said they'd be working on it, like to see where, at what resolution, like are they getting any benefit of having, if they put a 64 megabyte cache on there, would the benefit be severely reduced? Is 96 gonna kind of keep them competitive at higher resolution? Like 1440p, you'll see that cache getting hit a bit more. I think 4K will probably be where it's most utilized, which will be interesting to see how this card lines up at 4K, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to ask about where you think it lines up against the NVIDIA lineup, because it's been trading blows with the 3070, like Dirt 5 and Hitman 3 is quite significantly higher in FPS. So
yeah, I think as ever, take those results with a pinch of salt. I think as you would with any manufacturer benchmark, because they'll always be like, Dirt 5 is a game that's AMD's brand splashed all over it. So I do think that it's something to like keep an eye on, but they've been fair enough in putting at least one game. I think it's Watch Dogs Legion does show that the 6700 XT is actually slower than the 3060 Ti and the 3070 in that. But in other games, it's kind of fairly ahead of the 3060 Ti and trading blows with 3070. I think overall, if I were to just entirely speculate on just where it would land based on the other cards, it probably will land between the 3060 Ti and 3070 and maybe a little closer to 3070. But if I would take a guess, I think only in the AMD kind of friendly games it's going to go, oh, okay, well, it'll be able to compete with the 3070 frame to frame, or maybe even outperform it. But I think it's an important thing on that is that NVIDIA has DLSS, which isn't in every game by any means, but it is quite a big performance enhancing feature. So I think having DLSS is a big boon to NVIDIA's kind of cards, especially at that price.
But they've got an answer to that, haven't they?
They do have an answer to that, which we've not heard much about, but yeah, they do have an answer.
So it's something about they've got ray tracing accelerators, which are now a thing, and that's like one ray tracing accelerator per compute unit. So you've got 40 ray accelerators, and they're promising upscaling in fidelity, FX, super resolution. Can you explain what the heck that is?
Yeah, well, I mean, what we know of it. I think everyone here at PC Gamer, we're just sad that it's not called AMD LSS, which is just the biggest missed opportunity ever, but there's probably many reasons for that. But super resolution, all we know is it's built off, I think it's the direct ML Microsoft machine learning kind of API and a basic kind of code base. And then it is going to be using some form of super resolution or super scaling or something to bolster frame rates beyond what the actual graphics silicon is going to be producing in a way, I guess, akin to DLSS. We don't know a huge amount about it. AMD has said it'll be ready when it's ready, and we'll talk about it. One thing that we do know is that they're going to try and say it's an open standard and anyone can jump in if they want it. I still think that's not going to make a huge amount of difference to actually how it's being used, because realistically, AMD consoles, AMD powers the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and Series S. So they might use it, which would be great, I think, on console, actually, because that's a huge boon to their actual hardware. But then AMD cards will use it, great. Is NVIDIA going to say, oh yeah, we'll jump on that as well when they've got DLSS, they've got this whole ecosystem? I don't know, probably not. So I don't know if it'll really change, even if it is open, I don't know if anyone but AMD is going to be using it, but it's kind of tough to say anything at this point. We know where DLSS stands, we know how that works, and we've seen quite big generational leaps between the first version of it, the second version of it, and now we've got AMD saying, yeah, we've got something. We can't talk about it, we've got something. So all we can do is sit and be like, cool, we've got to trust in AMD here that they've got something, and it's a good solution, it's going to work, and it's going to be equivalent or good. And we just don't know. So I think if you're buying a card today, is that going to factor in much? That's tough to say. It can't really factor in right now because we don't have the information. So,
speaking of buying a card today, so they're supposed to be coming on sale. What, March 18th?
March 18th, yeah.
And they've said the price is going to be $479, which is $20 less than the 3070.
Yeah.
But can we expect to find it at that price currently?
Yeah.
Or at all?
I think that's the thing is, $20 less than the 3070 in theory, because are you going to see that card for that launch at that price? Probably. Some people will get that card at that price, I think. We've seen that before with the other one. AMD will sell it on their own site. They've got their own version of it. That card will probably sell for MSRP. How many of that card they've got to sell And will people really feel that that's the price it's coming out at? I mean, that's up in the air. Just like with the Nvidia cards, I mean, there are cards at those cheaper prices, but finding them right now, not inflated for whatever reason, supply, cryptocurrency mining, but also just resellers, but also just the sheer demand from gamers to get these cards, because they are all good. The Nvidia and the AMD cards we've seen so far offer such a generational leap, and they do. And I think that is really important, that they are convincing probably more gamers to make the switch who might not have otherwise done it with, say, the Turing generation from Nvidia. That was a bit more of like a mild step up. Introduced ray tracing, that was cool. It wasn't like a huge step up in terms of performance. And I think with Ampere you're definitely seeing that, and with RDNA 2 you're definitely seeing that, even more so on the red team side. So I think demand is going to be huge, and this is the cheaper card, like you say, at $479. The 6800 I believe is $579 as well. 500, and I think and so it's a lot cheaper. It will, because it's a cheaper card, just naturally attract more attention. I think they tend to be the more sold in higher volume when they're cheaper. The 1060 was this massively popular card because it was kind of that good balance of performance and price, and that's where you see the big volumes shift from warehouses. So this isn't quite the cheapest card that I imagine will sell the most in the lifespan of RDNA 2, because $479 is still a lot of money for a graphics card. I think it's easy to get caught up in it. It's still a lot of money to spend on a graphics card. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if AMD are able to get more out. Obviously, Nvidia's approach with this was, say, with the 3060, right, we're going to stop mining on it, so hopefully that'll get a bit more supply. Did that happen? We have no information to say whether or not. It still looked like it sold out immediately.
Yeah. On our end.
So,
yeah.
It looked like it went in a flash, just like every other card. And I think maybe in the long run, once demand kind of levels out, supply is able to catch up, we might start seeing the prices come down and the volume come up, and these cards be a bit more easy to find than the others. But for the time being, it seems like no matter where they're launching this card, they can't make enough of them to meet the demand from gamers, from miners, from whatever. Can't make enough of them. So I don't see that changing with the 6700 XT. But I'm hopeful as ever.
You
can never say, it's fingers crossed. Will it happen? I wouldn't bet on it.
Get your clicking fingers ready.
Yeah.
No
I think
cheating. No bots.
Even more so on this. I don't know where's the best place to look. I know with the 6000 series cards that launched before, AMD's own website seemed to be quite a good place to start off. But who can say? It's really up in the air. So like you say, if you want a 6700 XT on March 18th, then I think you're gonna have to be pretty quick, or maybe even go to a shop in person if it's safe to do so and you're able to do so safely. Then maybe that's the way to go. But yeah, it's gonna be tough. This is like a little Easter egg that I have here for all my videos. You can see it, loads of them, where I have interviews. It's actually just a Kirby with really long legs.